So we just finished our discussion on some of the most frequently sort of diagnosed problems that we see in a lot of the clinics that myself and my teammates teach at some of the national and regional ice climbing events. Now I'd like to focus on some of the questions that we're often asked during those clinics. First and foremost would almost certainly be the question of, do we need a special harness for the sake of ice climbing? Now, I would say yes and no to that. I know that's a terrible answer, but let's start with the no part. Well, if you have some experience rock climbing, whether it's in a gym or outdoors, I would argue that if you're just trying out ice climbing, there's no need to go out and buy an ice-specific harness. I think the rock climbing harness that you currently have, as long as it's fitted correctly, and safely that is, should suffice no problem. Now, what makes an ice climbing harness a little different than, say, your conventional rock climbing harness? A couple things, actually. Now, this is going to sort of play into my yes reasoning here. At some point, if you matriculate and start to lead ice climbs, I think that's the point at which you may want to start considering a harness that's kind of purpose-built for that activity, and here's why. Now, when we're discussing ice harnesses, there may be several things structurally that are a little bit different than your standard rock climbing harness. Now, as I mentioned, ice climbing is a winter sport in most parts of the world, and so we're typically wearing more layers than what we would enjoy when we're out rock climbing in the summertime. And so, again, ice climbing harnesses may then feature adjustable leg loops in addition to the adjustable waist belt to afford that harness a bit more range of fit if you happen to be wearing extra layers on extremely cold climbs, more layers than perhaps you would when you're rock climbing. Another sort of feature that might distinguish an ice harness from a regular rock harness, oftentimes, again, in order to extend the range of fit, some ice harnesses may feature a double buckle design, which enables us to give each size a bit more range of fit. And that also will accommodate sort of extra layers of clothing oftentimes. So it's nice to have a harness that has a bit more range of fit adjustment than, say, your standard rock climbing harness. Now again, when we look at the construction of an ice climbing harnesses, most ice harnesses are typically going to share a couple of things. The one would be the construction. The materials used in the construction of an ice climbing harness are oftentimes going to be less absorbent of moisture, because again, depending on the circumstances, if you're ice climbing, it could certainly feel like you're either in a freezer or it could feel like you're in a rainstorm sometimes as the ice melts above you. But the most important thing is we really can't afford to have any part of our kit absorb moisture and then potentially freeze, because that almost renders it incapable of being used. So again, with a harness, we want to make sure and find an ice climbing harness that has a construction using hydrophobic materials that aren't going to absorb too much moisture, and oftentimes in lieu of a lot of padding, because the designer of a harness like this assumes that you're going to be wearing other layers that you wouldn't normally be putting on while you're rock climbing. Those layers of clothing provide some of the padding that you would find typically fixed in the waist belt and the leg loops of a regular rock climbing harness. I'd say the main distinguishing feature of an ice-specific harness versus a rock climbing harness would be the addition of this feature. These are loosely referred to as ice clipper loops, if you will. But essentially what it is it's going to be a slot that enables the harness to accommodate these types of features. Now, again, what the heck are these things? In this case here, we manufacture an ice clipper called the carabiner. This is, as you can see, just a large, full-strength wire gate carabiner. But it's purpose-built to be used in conjunction with this little bracket here, which enables you to kind of position the carabiner on this particular harness such that that carabiner is perpendicular, I'd say, to the surface along the hip where this harness should be affixed. What that does is it enables us to rack ice screws and to remove them very quickly on the fly. Now again, the protection for ice climbing will include a lot of things that we don't see in rock climbing, namely ice screws. Now, rather than racking them on our gear loops on our harness, as we do when we're rock climbing or on a gear sling, we need now a new method to rack this particular method of protection, and we use these clipper loops as that function.